Welcome in, Garden Report pregame clinch edition, championship clinch edition.
I like it. There's a ring to it.
We think Game 5 between the Celtics and the Mavericks. Josue Pavone, Bobby Manning, John Zanis, Rob Blakely's going to join us in a little bit, and we're going to kind of talk through some of our fears, right? I don't know how you guys feel as the days, hours, minutes ticked on after that Game 4 massacre when we were all in Dallas and we witnessed it. I think our feeling that night was, okay, it happens. Then the next day was like, is it going to happen again? And then we hit today, and it's kind of like, So my vibe is not, I'm not panicking, but I'm definitely, my concern is like a 7.
Panic meter?
8? I didn't say panic. I said,
that's high.
It's a concern counter,
I didn't
not
know
a
we had a
panic meter.
concern counter.
And for those people wondering, because I'm sure the comments right now are filled with two things, which is, one, John Zanis has hair, and two, he's wearing a jacket.
You don't have that
It's
on.
not a jacket, it's a clinch coat. It's a clinch coat. But where are you at in terms of like your vibe right now? How are you feeling about things?
We've said it. Each game is closer to 50-50 at this point after the Celtics generally dominated the first 2-3 games of that series. Of course, they had some issues in Game 3. There's a lot that turned in Dallas's direction that last game. And then, of course, over the last 2 or 3 here, Porzingis' absence played a big part in this being a closer series. But the 3-0 edge is the 3-0 edge. 159-0 or whatever it is 159-0.
4 coin flips is hard to win.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's kind of the point. It's like 4 50-50s, and that's so the long view you feel good, but game to game you're like, ooh, I hope the shots fall tonight, you know, and that's kind of the vibe. Is that first quarter, I think the fans who are going to come in here jacked up hoping that they're going to see something tonight. Mavericks go on one of those runs and they go up 8, 9, 10. You know, when they did it in Game 4, we were like, Celtics will come back. They've come back. They'll be all right. And then it was like, and it's 20, 25, and then it never, ever, ever came back. So that's where we're at.
That's why it's so important for Dallas. Like, that's why Dallas has to get out to that quick start, because if you can suck the air out of this building early, that's a humongous advantage for the Dallas Mavericks. It will 100%
because people are excited, but anxious. They're going to get really nervous if that happens.
Especially the first sign of trouble. And if you're able to do that in the first quarter, then that's a big, big advantage. Plus, you wake up this morning, you got history like all over social media. 617 day. Oh yeah. Well, Sean Grady took it a step further, guys.
Oh God.
Like to throw up Bill Russell representing number 6, 17 representing Havlicek, 24 Sam Jones. Like, that whole mystique, it's cool.
Well, every number's retired, so every number.
I know, but Bobby, talk about the pressure, man. Tatum, Brown. It's like, geez, if we let these guys down, then all of Celtics Nation is not only concerned, but they're like panic mode completely. So and that could easily happen with a double-digit lead for the Dallas Mavericks.
There's been some pressure management on both sides. You've heard it the last couple of days. Even PJ Washington this morning was like, we don't have any pressure. You know, we're the ones playing without it. Celtics saying we don't have to win this game tomorrow. We have a couple chances. So both sides are trying to.
But also Drew Holiday saying, it's a shit ton of pressure playing here. And Kyrie Irving saying it after the fact. Like, it's, because you're playing the ghosts. You know?
The Kyrie Irving thing is the biggest
So the Grandy thing doesn't help, Josue, because you're playing these ghosts. Like, you know, you're not doing it for Bill Russell. You're doing it for little Josue Pavone, you know, like.
Well, no, before it was about the fans. Now it's like, oh no, you're doing it for the ghost of the greatest Celtics players that ever played.
You're not.
But that's how it feels, though.
I don't think they're gonna feel that.
I'm not a Mystique guy. I'll tell you why, and I hope Nick Gelso's not watching because he'll friggin' flip over.
He's a huge Mystique guy.
No, but I mean, look, what are we talking about here? It's it's 18 years to the day from the last title, but before that, it was another 22 years. So we're talking about one in 36 years. It's a long. This generation of people, the Celtics are not that Mystique team. It's a team, and it's always hanging in the background. But I think people today and these guys, they know that it's here, and you play for the Warriors, you know it. But they're playing for themselves and for the fans and for everybody else. So I don't necessarily buy all of that aspect to it, but it's good for the fans. It's fun for the fans to talk about.
Well, the Kyrie thing's the biggest thing tonight, because if he plays anywhere close to what he was playing in those first 2 games here, what he's played in recent history in this building, the Mavs are screwed. They need both of those guards to show up. They need both of them to be locked in and playing to their level. Luka, of course, turned it around last game. Kyrie looked good in Dallas overall, but there he is yesterday again, talking about the tenure with the team and what it's going to be like in this building and all that different kind of stuff. So it's in his head. I'd be very concerned if I was Dallas about that. Everything else looks good for them. The rebounding, Porzingis absence, Luka turning it around. But the Mavs have to be very worried about where Kyrie's head is at.
I think so. And, you know, we'll get into Kyrie because I do think that's
I think that's the biggest
a
factor
thing because
tonight.
we've said this a bunch. I don't think Dallas wins a game with its role players and just Luka playing well. I think the Celtics are going to make life a lot harder on Luka tonight than they did in Game 4. It is a little concerning to me that Luka's been getting to his spots so easily. And again, the difference, especially in Game 4, in terms of what they're able to do in the non-restricted area, the Mavs with their twos, they're hitting those. So they're getting to those spots and they're getting those shots down. So there's really only so much you can do. You know, they're taking the shots you kind of want them to take, and Luka and Kyrie, they're just really good at hitting them. Yeah. But before we get into Kyrie, we got to talk about what we saw on the court earlier because it's a little different. I did not want to do the whole Kristaps Porzingis thing again because based on what the guys were saying after the game, during practice yesterday, Tillman, who I had asked a question about it, gave a really too honest and telling answer about like he's really uncomfortable and used words like excruciating pain. And again, the report I think from Shams earlier today that he might be in the same role as last time active, emergency basis and this, that. However, and I don't want to get people excited, what we just saw on the court, he wrapped up maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes ago, was totally different in terms of the type of warm-up that he went through. He was doing a little bit of everything. That was getting out on a box out, closing out on a three-point shooter, things like that we hadn't really seen him do. We just saw him kind of working on that right and the left and getting shots up, and that's it. Now, the shots still looked a teeny bit flat, and I don't think he's going to have a lot of lift there, so he's got to kind of compensate with a little more upper body there. But he was moving, pretty well, I thought, all things considered from what we'd seen so far. This was definitely amped up a bit, so I'm going to change my prediction to you won't see him at all except for a human victory cigar too. I think they're going to try him tonight. I think they might.
Well, Shams Charania reported earlier in the day that the likelihood is they'll be the same role as last game, an emergency situational type thing.
A little up.
We'll say it definitely was an extensive warm-up, one that tried to fatigue him, one that tested him. The medical staff was watching pretty closely, talking to him. What they basically did is everything he'll do in the game. Right. Rebounding, moving laterally, the rebounding, and shooting on the move was the big one, because all we've seen him do really is shoot stationary.
Yeah, it seemed like that's what they're simulating, especially on the defensive side when he was kind of going through his set. Exactly, and that wasn't stuff that we saw in Dallas.
Can you get out on a shooter? Can you try and box?
Right, how he responds, how his body responds to that. That's the kind of stuff that makes me think that he might get that spot. But again, it's all about the situation. I think if the Celtics feel like there's something that could give them a jolt of energy like he's been giving them every time he gets off the bench, ever since since Game 1, I guess, that with this new role off the bench, I feel like that's something that you can use to your advantage in the first quarter, like a quick stint, something 5-6 minutes. But then I don't know what you do after that though, because that's the thing, Bobby. I'm about to say that, if you're unable to put him back in altogether, then it's well, are you hurting this team? Because that's going to be something that's you can't use in the fourth quarter,
I think it's becoming a tiny bit of a distraction, especially if that scenario plays out.
I think you're distracted, yes. I think it's distracting.
I think it's driving you crazy.
I think it's driving you insane.
Yeah. So here we are again. I don't want to hear later, I never thought he was going in seriously. They're just subbing him in at the end.
This is different, though. This isn't like Game 4. But I hear what you're saying, Bobby. Game 4 is okay, we have a cushion. Why throw them out there, especially if they're down, double digits, as quickly as that happened in the first quarter? If that happens, if that plays out, then no, I don't think you throw Kristaps in there, because why would you do that? It's not going to make a humongous difference. But if you're looking for a little edge, just to give you a bump into a 12, 14-point deficit, something that could really hurt the Mavericks and get this place rocking, then maybe you do it.
What do you think happened over the last couple of days? Did he get that much better? Did they lose faith in Tillman? What would have changed the fact that they would have put him in?
Yeah. I don't know.
How he responds to those drugs, is that what it is?
Really painkillers? We're going to have this going on a little bit. There's nothing we can do about it.
They can only practice it once, so
we'll talk right through it, though. Yeah. What do I think? I don't think much changed. I don't. I think it was probably break glass in case of emergency in the first instance, and this is we're not quite at an emergency, but also we got to try it if we're going to try it. So I almost view it, and also I think you factor in what Dallas did to you, getting destroyed on the boards, having no interior presence, and Tillman, I wouldn't say being unplayable, but having a really tough time with what was going on there. I almost view the idea of playing Porzingis, even for a few minutes in this game, in the same vein as like a number 1 wide receiver who's slightly hobbled, who you put out there as a decoy. You're not gonna not put your fastest guy or double team Tyreek Hill for fear that he's gonna go over the top on you and score. But also, he might not really have it in him, but you can't wait and see. So they're not going to leave him open, which means the defense has to extend on him again for those threes. And it's daunting to drive on somebody who's 7'2" in the paint, even if he doesn't have the same lift. So all of that stuff is fine. The question is, you get him in space, he starts moving around. Do things get weird and you see how limited and hobbled he is, and they really take advantage? And if you see him being taken advantage of out there, then it's a problem. But if the Celtics on the perimeter do what they do, and Holiday and White jump out, kind of trap, kind of blitz guys, move them out so Kristaps can stay and drop and stay put, and he doesn't have to play in space, I think you can get away with it and limit how much of his movement there. And then on offense, whether it's extending the bigs out to the 30-foot mark and have them come out and guard him, or just get the switch and see if he can just he doesn't need the jump. He turns around and posts up over a smaller guy. That's in play. That's still something I think he can shoot flat-footed. And it's a weapon you don't have otherwise. So I think if he can tolerate the pain, I do think it's worth that 3 to 4 minute.
I swear, they only do one.
The argument
I tried to use this booming voice and blow through in one diatribe.
As soon as she started again, I was like, what is she doing?
I was timing my words to get through the whole song, and I stopped.
The finals edition, I guess they get 2.
The argument, Josue, for this happening now makes sense to me, though.
I've never heard this before.
Because you're either going to use him now, get that boost, and end the series, or you're going to deal with, because it could deflate you. If it doesn't go well and you have to take him on, never play him again,
if you're the Dallas Mavericks, you smell blood.
Right, so but you can handle that now. You can't handle that in Game 6 or Game 7.
That's true. I mean, that's the biggest question mark, though, because if you're Joe Mazzulla, you can kind of only do this once, right? You can't, pull this off again if there is a Game 6, right? And then Kristaps' body's probably going to deteriorate because of less rest and just his body just not responding the way it's supposed to. It's just not enough time. We're not talking about 5 or 6 days in between these games. It's just again, I think this is like a one-time thing you can use, and you have to decide if this is the one that's worth it. If you're looking for that edge in the first half that could ultimately put you up in a space where Dallas Mavericks cannot come back and the crowd is just too much, then you do it. But Joe Mazzulla has to make that decision.
Yeah, it's almost riskier, and I didn't hear any of that, so I'm just going to fax my dog you. No,
you're fine.
I heard something. What I'll say is
I was about to make that joke before she started singing again for the second time.
It was fax my dog. I didn't hear a thing. But there's a good point. I did hear. There's a good point you make there.
She goes a third time talking.
Because put it this way, if you hold it out until desperation in Game 7, that's risky because now you're putting somebody out there in a do or die without any clue what they have. You almost have house money here, which is you're home. You might use a little jolt. You put him in there. You see what he's got, and if it's nothing, then you just live with the fact that you're going to have to play the rest of this game and potentially 1 or 2 more without him, and you know that.
Well, is that
but
part
this
of the
might be
messaging?
definitive here. This might be the definitive test, which is, again, we're not doctors, and even the doctors don't fully understand or know. Some people have said risk of re-injury is super high, and some have said it's just pain tolerance. He's fine. It's kind of all over the map here. But if it's simply a pain tolerance / effectiveness issue and whether or not he's going to be able to do stuff without that thing slipping out again and him just being in excruciating pain, not able to move, try it once where you have an opportunity to still experiment before things get a little bit goofy.
Because they'll
and
be
you go back to
deflating.
Dallas and all of a sudden it's woo. So I don't think you can wait till 7. I think if you're going to do it, this seems like an opportune spot.
And the way they're doing it too, the way they've upped things up in terms of his pregame routine. Let's see how much he can handle. I think they want to see if that's in the cards, And look, hear me out too, guys. I'm not talking about a 12-point, 5-rebound performance. I'm talking about a block and a 3-pointer can get this place rocking. The whole building would go insane. Never mind if he made a second one. Something like that would be huge. And if you're the Dallas Mavericks and Kyrie Irving's not feeling it, it's early, you're down by double digits, that could be enough.
Yeah, and I don't feel like you need it. Again, if it was my choice, I'd shelve him. I'd roll with what you got. You have enough right now to close this series out, up 3-1 without him and throwing in that uncertainty into the series. the thing you're probably dealing with here is him wanting to give it a try, and you see the.
Oh,
no.
I don't think
he wants
that,
to be part of this.
No.
He wants
I
to get
agree
in there.
100%. He wants to, but
Yeah.
I highly believe they're going to let him go just because he wants to. They're going to determine if it's best for the team, and if it is, if it is, and the doctors give him clearance, then yes. I don't believe it's like.
Well, he already has clearance.
Kristaps really wants to play. Right.
He already has clearance if he's active, you would think.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on. Again, it's really confusing the whole way this has played out so far. So if he's sitting there on the bench the whole night again, I don't think anyone will be surprised. It will be a little surprising if he gets out
I don't think
there.
it's that confusing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things too. Like, if it's a close game, and it's the fourth quarter, you're really gonna throw in Kristaps in that type of situation. Like I don't think it's something that would be an advantage for the Celtics, and especially if you're the Dallas Mavericks, you're thinking to yourself, "Oh man, these guys are desperate." And then what happens? He goes out and plays 4-5. He's hobbled. That's a span that could swing in the Dallas's direction.
That's the risk.
Like that's
You
that's
could
a
play
momentum
this
killer.
card, and it could deflate you, John.
Yes,
But you have to do it
But
now.
is it any more deflating watching Kristaps Porzingis go out and struggle as opposed to Xavier Tillman get dunked on by Lively on a lob? Like,
No.
deflating is deflating. Like, and I'm not saying that would happen to Tillman, but what I'm saying is it's possible, right?
It's possible, but given his health, given his status, given that he hasn't played, is a higher likelihood of that happening with Kristaps out there. And again, if it's the boost, it's going to go in either direction. It's not going to be neutral, you would think. He's either going to come out there and make a few plays, as Joe Sway said, over a short stint and shut the door on the series, or he's going to really struggle, and that can deflate you if he's not able to come back for the second half, especially since at that point you're leaning on what you have for effectively the rest of the series. So again, I get the timing here. It makes sense. You can't do this in 6 or 7. You have to do it now with that 3-1 cushion.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. And if he's just sitting on the bench again, that's where I'm going to be really confused again.
The other thing we want to talk about is ultimately what was the, Kristaps aside, how much of what Dallas did to the Celtics, did they crack the code, or was it an aberration?
A little bit of both, because you got the worst Celtics performance in the playoffs on the other side, and that's going to aid everything you're doing on that side. But you did see, as I've said, every role player effectively for Dallas contribute something, and they were contributing nothing previously. So if you even get half of what that on Dallas's end, and the Kyrie effect and the Luka performance that you need, that's what makes this game more of a toss-up at this point.
Well, I'm wondering how much Joe Mazzulla going into this game and game planning is looking at the fact that Al Horford didn't even attempt a shot by halftime. Like he was a goose egg. Like if I'm him, I'm making sure that doesn't happen again. 1, right, and 2, I'm trying to figure out like why did that happen so easily, and it didn't really affect them in the sense of like them trying to change that. Like I know Al's not like the first, second, or third option here, but like when you don't have Kristaps Porzingis out there, and if you get a chance to get him going, why not do that? Especially after what we saw in Game 4, and you saw how much of a difference it made of him not being able to protect the rim. Dallas Mavericks scoring, 60 points or over 60 plus points in the paint. Like that's what really pushed them over the edge. Well, on top of Tim Hardaway going off for 15 in that fourth quarter or whatever, but that's what put them in that like 120 point category, section. I think that's something that you have to make sure it doesn't happen again, 1, for Al, and 2, like if this is a chance to clinch, obviously it is, right? That's a big spot for Al, and I think he's ready for that opportunity. He wants that. Like, that would be huge. So, getting him his shots, I think, should be something that Joe Mazzulla makes sure happens at some point throughout this first half.
And the extra rest.
You shouldn't
That's
have
true.
a block.
And
So we mentioned that.
day.
And again, we're talking about a lot of the same things because not much has changed. But that was a slight concern I had, which Al had played big minutes in Game 3 because he had to. And that was the one game where you only had the 1 day rest because of the the no travel in between there. And so
now you get the travel
that
day.
happens.
Now you
And
get
Al
you get the
was
Father's
not
Day
bad.
vibes.
He wasn't the best version of himself.
Right.
And so I do expect a better Al. I also what I keep coming back to that eases any sort of panic I have or concern about Game 5 is every single player that you count on who is an excellent top 30 NBA player that the Celtics have was the worst possible version of themselves, with
Everybody.
an exception of Tatum a little bit early, is able to score, but then everything went to shit for him too. Brown was
Right.
totally off. It's kind of shades of an older version of Brown we haven't really seen. Holiday couldn't hold on to the ball. Derek White, Al, not much of a factor. Really didn't get anything from the bench. Pritchard's not hitting shots. Everything went bad. Every single thing. Okay, sure. Did Dallas force some of it? Absolutely. But even when that happens, how many times have you seen a night where every single one of the Celtics players that you've come to count on during the course of the season played about as bad a basketball game as you could ever imagine? It's not that Dallas figured out something that was so mystifying that all of a sudden they just flipped the switch and the Celtics were like, I don't know what to do anymore. They just all had horrible games. Can you imagine that repeating itself tonight? I can't.
With appropriate effort, this should be a close game at the very
Nor
least.
can I
There's
imagine the Dallas bench repeating what it did.
Right, exactly. And that's the part where you're like, wait, how did the Mavericks win this then? Luka, maybe you have one of those classic historic performances in the finals. That could happen, but Kyrie is just as easily as important, if you ask me. Not that he needs to have one of those type of performances, but they need 20 plus. I'm not quite sure he's going to be able to do that here in this building.
Yeah.
I know I mentioned the Tim Hardaway thing last game. I think he gets a few threes in this one, but still, they need a lot more than that off the bench. Lively, double-double. Does he do that again?
Yeah.
He better not, because if you're the Celtics, you have to take pride
The Lively
in that.
thing's interesting.
You have to take pride in the fact that, hey, we can't ever get out-rebounded like that, and that guy's a rookie.
Yeah, I know.
So let's make sure that never
but
happens.
also,
There's a height
again,
issue
it's the
with
law
him.
of the average. It's law of averages
Yeah.
with these guys. What am I looking at?
There's a height issue with him.
Porzingis available. We've just been told by our super producer Amit.
It's official.
He is available. We'll hear from Joe Mazzulla in a little bit. We'll see if Joe changes his tune. It was Joe who said emergency basis last game, or not emergency, limited, situational, whatever he had said there, special situations. And so he kind of put that on there. I'm curious what he says tonight. But Porzingis is available. That was announced much faster than last game.
You know what I think he's gonna
much
say?
faster. We did not have that last time until we went off the air after 7 o'clock and we were waiting on it, which
Right.
means they were still figuring it out. Again, you want to talk about good sign, bad sign. He went back there and they called it fast.
Yeah.
So that's not bad. That's something to think about. We'll talk a little bit more real quick, guys. I want to tell the folks at home here, and we're going to flip it. We're going to start with game time because the prices are coming down. Maybe people are getting nervous like I was getting nervous, and they're like, I don't know, maybe I should wait for game 7. But the prices you can get in, decent money here. So if you're still looking for tickets to this game, go to Game Time. It's an authorized ticket marketplace. Get in there, and it's the fastest and easiest way to get tickets to the NBA Finals, and this could be your last chance. And again, this doesn't come around very often. It's like an eclipse here. It's 18 years. I mean, we never know. We'll have the dynasty conversation later.
Yeah, right.
But to clinch at home, and again, I say this all the time, the clinch at home is special, and it does not happen. We're talking about the Patriots 6 Super Bowls, the Red Sox 4 World Series, the Bruins a Stanley Cup, and the Celtics a championship. Again, obviously every Super Bowl is on the road, but only the 2013 Red Sox and the 2008 Celtics have won in Boston, which is cool.
You
So
still got time.
Get out here, get on Game
Plenty of
Time,
time.
and check out your tickets. Download the app. Use the code CLNS, get $20 off your first purchase. Every little bit helps here. Again, we're not going to kid you. It's an expensive ticket to get into the NBA Finals, particularly a clinch situation. Game Time has you covered. Go into the app. Prices get lower as you get closer to Game Time. So maybe you want to mill around and see if you get lucky and you can get yourself in here and potentially see the Celtics take home banner 18. Once again, download the app. Use the code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase. And you can still get in on the action with Prize Picks if you want. America's #1 fantasy sports app, more than 5 million members. Hi, Sherrod Blakely. Sherrod's here. We'll get Sherrod in a minute. We're going to sub him in. Most fun and exciting way to get in on the action. Watch your favorite players more or less. On any stat projection, 2 to 6 players, you could turn $10 into $1,000. So make sure you check in on that. And after the NBA Finals are over, you still got a lot more you could potentially watch with the WNBA and a lot of other sports here. So again, download that app today. Use the code CLNS, and you will get a first deposit match up to $100. Once again, download the Prize Picks app and get a first deposit match up to $100. Guys, going back to what we were saying before, talking a little bit about Lively, talking about the Mavs bench. We talked a little bit about, did they wake the beast? I gave you my take the other day, which is, I dare you to do it again. You know, if you're those guys, and we've seen it with the Celtics, you get a good Hauser game, followed by this guy's unplayable game. I mean, no disrespect. Good Pritchard game fall. If they were good every game, they would be starters and they'd be making $30 million a year. There's a reason why some of these guys are coming off the bench or haven't played. So do you believe they found a combo with whether it's Hardy or Exum or the Hardaway threes that were raining in garbage time at the end of the game that's going to change the dynamic of the matchup?
No, I think it's going to be Lively. He's the guy who came in early, subbed in early in that game.
Yep.
It's a matchup issue for Horford in particular, with the height, with the athleticism, the offensive rebounding that Lively's able to show out there. And that three, I think, is repeatable if he gets another look out there. Maybe hit one.
Like I said, I'm giving Lively as many threes as he wants.
I've never seen so much hype about a three-pointer, man, in my life, I swear.
He has a good release.
Well, no, I understand that. And that's something that's been discussed before. It was reported on. Like, he has a future in that. But it's just like, what's he going to drop, like 4 threes out here?
No, he's going to hit one.
If he hits one, then it's like, okay, well, that's 3 points on the board.
He can have one.
Yeah, I just think it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, that's going to be part of his game moving forward, but it's not going to just all of a sudden be shooting him like Steph Curry out here. Like, I think it's too much hype behind the whole three-point shot.
For sure.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the stuff, the rebounding, the second chance opportunities. That's what's going to kill you. I could care less about the threes, man.
Yeah. Who do you got?
What do you mean? We're doing predictions?
No, who are you looking out for on their side?
Nobody. I'm not worried at all. Like I said,
Hardaway got a few threes in him, but that's about it.
I don't think it's Hardaway.
I think it's Lively. No, when we talk about bench guys,
yeah.
like I think that's pretty much it. You know, it really going to come down to the starters, Gafford, guys like that. They're going to have to defend, create stops, and honestly, those second chance opportunities. That's really what pushed them in Game 4. That's a big part.
No, I like I said. I'm
not counting on that.
I dare you to do it again.
Yeah.
As I said before the series began, and this is why, like, the rational me, looks at the panicked me in the mirror and just says, "Fucking man up!" Like, what's wrong with you?
Because it's like the guy who come through the mirror, like,
it's Mac. Like, because before the series began, I said, I don't understand this matchup and why people jumped on the Mavericks bandwagon because, and again, Porzingis was healthy at that time, but I looked at it and I'm looking at Gafford and Jones. And Washington would be, like I said, players 7 through 10 on the Celtics, and they're starting. So, I mean, if that's who you're starting, and when you switched those guys to the starting lineup, that's what flipped the switch for Dallas and changed everything about how they were playing late. And then now you're talking about, well, maybe we should see more of Exum and
Didn't you say early in the show though you expect the Celtics to bring more pressure to Luka? That's the kind of thing that'll wake up some of these guys, or at least present more opportunities.
I want them to. I dare those guys to do it. Like I said, you get beat by the Dallas bench, tip your hat. Make them do it 4 times.
Right.
I'm not saying bring more pressure to Luka because you're going to change how you defend him. I'm saying you're going to do that if Porzingis is out there and he's trying to run that pick and roll with him, you want to protect him, allow him to drop, so you might kind of do what they did in Game 2 a little bit more that we saw, which is extend out a little bit, try to push him out and try to let Porzingis recover and get back into the paint so they don't get beat on that lob and they've got protection in and around the rim. That's what I see as possible, not doubling Luka and then letting him pick you apart. Because you don't want to do that. You don't want him finding wide open shooters all game long. But again, anything above the break from any of those guys, take it.
Yeah.
Rip it.
If you get a big game out of Drew Holiday, man, that's going to create all kinds of problems for this Dallas Mavericks team, man. So I don't know, man. I'm feeling really confident in those guys bouncing back from what we saw in Game 4, just that backcourt. And that's going to be a big blow for these guys, for this Dallas Mavericks team, if that's consistent.
Yep.
That's what's big. I mean, that's what. That's how they can wrap up this series, this championship.
Yeah. Saying hi to. We might be sitting in Steve Buckley's seats.
And
I do feel bad if that's the case. Buck, if we're in your seats, we're moving in 5 minutes.
Buck will be all right.
Thank you.
He's getting his steps in.
Buck's good like that.
Yeah.
He's good like that. Sherrod, you want to let Sherrod?
Yeah.
We're gonna bring in Sherrod. Slide. Oh, he's eating some chips. We'll get Sherrod's take on this, and we will wrap it up because the media is starting to circle, and we are going to hear from both Jason Kidd and Joe Mazzulla. And I am curious what Mazzulla is going to say about Porzingis. But Sherrod, let's start it with you, my man. Look at this guy.
Let's go.
Got
my hard hat ready to whip out later on. Let's go.
Oh, I hope we brought them all. Special surprise later. Should I tell them now? I'll tell you later.
Tell them later.
Later. Shh. They can hear you, Amit. There's something coming late, okay? In a clinch.
Stay tuned.
Should we? I'll tell you 2 things for everybody watching right now, and we'll promote it as well. After the game, we're going to do our standard Garden report because that's what we do. If they win, stay tuned. We are going to do something special after the game,
Ooh.
after. And so you're going to want to do that with the whole cast of characters, and I mean the whole cast of characters.
Ooh.
Now, moving along, let's get Sherrod's take here. The first thing that we heard was that just a moment ago, Kristaps Porzingis is available. You weren't here to see it. Bobby and I would concur. Do you concur?
Yeah, I do.
I concur. He was moving pretty
Better.
well for
Yeah.
what we've seen so far. They put him through some serious, kind of movements, and they declared him available very fast. The last game was after 7 o'clock when it came through.
Right.
Bang, 6:30, ding, he's available. I'm
He's
now
playing, John.
changing my forecast to
He's
not
gonna
just
play.
emergency play. He's playing.
He's going to
playing.
play.
He's going
I think last
he's going
guys
to play.
have-
he
play.
was available last game
He's
because
going to play, Bobby.
yeah, this isn't going to be victory
What are we
cigar.
doing
and
here? Yes, he's going to play. That your answer is going to be answered today.
I'm going no, but why do you think
I think he's going to play because, for one thing, the quickness in which they said he's available, which I think is there's a reason why. Because they were pretty sure he was going to play even before he did anything. Two, they're at a point now where you could see 5 to 10 minutes of him actually giving you a major boost. Lively came alive
Yes,
in
Bobby.
Game 4, so you need
Boost,
something
Bobby.
to at least
Boost,
neutralize
Bobby.
that.
Or-
Get on board.
It's a boost.
We got room for
or-
you, Bobby.
Get on
Don't worry.
board.
Tip-off's a little bit away. We got room for you to jump. You
It could
still have
either
time.
boost you or deflate you.
I don't
it could go
think-
one of two directions.
I think it can only help you. The crowd, and you remember, of all the guys in their main rotation, who seems to play off the crowd more than anyone else? He is him, and him is Kristaps Porzingis. Let's go, Bobby. Jump on.
I'll believe it when I see it. 'Cause,
I'm believing right now.
again, you had that opportunity in Game 4, and you
He
didn't go to it,
wasn't
did they?
ready.
So 3 days changed everything.
He wasn't ready.
We'll see.
He
That would be
was your
surprising.
third center. He wasn't ready. He wasn't ready. He wasn't ready. Maybe he was. I think a combination of everything. The game got out of
You
hand.
didn't need him at 3-0.
They didn't
maybe?
necessarily want to test it. This game, as we said earlier, and Sherrod, my theory was that if you're going to do it, this one makes the most sense.
Yeah.
4 was less necessary, and 5 is I can't trot him out much later and count on him at this
Right.
point. I got to see if he's got it, and if he
Right.
does, great. We can
Right.
keep using him. If he doesn't, we got to batten down the hatches and
Right.
get through 6 and 7 without him,
Right.
and we know we're without him, and we're not
Right.
going to go through the charade anymore. So I think this makes most sense to try to test him out here.
And I think he's just a little bit more self-confident about his ability to help this team do something now than he was in Game 4. Because at that point, he would have played had they put the game out of the way early. I
Yeah.
think it would have been victory cigar Kristaps. I personally would make him my first sub.
Boom.
The crowd
5 minutes
will
in.
go ballistic.
Oh, that's happening, Bobby.
There's a real boost right there at the very least.
Oh, he's coming.
Exactly.
Get on board. We're going to get him.
Come on, Bobby. You're almost there.
I just worry.
You're almost there.
We keep comparing it to OG Anunoby, where
But it's
he's
not.
going up and down the court. Not
But
looking
the
like
Knicks were
himself.
cooked, and they
were
really
desperate.
needed him. The
Right.
Celtics can win this without. That's the difference between those two,
I'm
and
just
that's what
talking
you
about
come
how
back
he
to.
looks. If he goes 5 minutes, doesn't have it, and they pull him, and you know he's done at that point, that deflates you tonight. Now tonight's the night you try it. So I
That
understand
means
why you go with
38-year-old
that.
Al he's got to go become 28-year-old
And
Al.
you're going to work X in.
Right.
You're going to figure things out. You might go small at times, and see what you can do. They just got to focus a little bit more.
Right.
They just.
There's no way this game should be a blowout loss at the very least. If you show that,
That's not what we're going for.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what they're coming off
All
of.
right,
Right.
good. But that's
So-
not going to make anybody feel better.
So that's the one thing isn't going to happen tonight
Okay.
if you show the appropriate level of
Yeah.
effort. So at the very least, you're going to be in this game with a chance to win it. It's just about whether you can seal it out.
Yeah.
A Celtics blowout's certainly in play if the shooting comes around,
Yeah.
but I'm expecting a close one here.
Sherrod, what's on your mind?
Lively.
Yeah.
I think you can deal with a big game from
That's where I
Kyrie. You
went
can
too.
deal with a big game
Bobby
from
was there
Luka.
too.
But Lively was the guy that I really thought was the difference maker in Game 4. His activity. I mean, the guy had 7 offensive rebounds. The entire Celtics team only had 4. He hit a freaking three-pointer or something he literally has not done in the NBA.
Yeah.
And so when you start looking at the impact that he made and the things that he was able to accomplish in Game 4, to me, that was the one thing. Exa made a couple of shots. I'm not worried about him. Lively is the one that I'm worried about because you don't really have a clear guy that can neutralize that except for a guy like Porzingis, who, again, his presence, he doesn't have to make shots. He just has to be a presence when he's on the floor that Dallas has to account for. That's going to open things up for everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So jump on board, Bobby. Jump on the KP.
I'll be
train.
surprised.
I
if we
like
see
Lively.
him.
I actually expected more from him. I'm surprised they were able to keep him so
It took
quiet.
him, yeah, it took
I
him
didn't
longer
think
than I
about
thought.
starting him.
If you think about, well, I mean, they almost did. They brought him in at like the
Yeah.
2.5-minute mark last game, and I
Right.
think immediately it changed. And again, we talked about why. I think his coverage and being able to get out on the corners, is just a little bit. He's just a little bit quicker than Gafford is, able
Right.
to extend out on the shooters, and I think it made a difference. And he's that lob threat, and he's athletic. I like him a lot, but what neutralized guys like Lively and every bench player on the Mavericks in the first 3 games was discipline. And the Celtics didn't play with discipline. I think if they go back to, and again, it's not about did Dallas figure it out, did the Celtics figure it out. I mean, yes, there are small adjustments being, happening here and there, but ultimately each team has similar game plans each time. The Celtics is to, get Luka and Kyrie on switches and drive and kick and get out to open shooters and get the Mavericks spinning in rotation. Mavericks just did a better job, with that, and they didn't get all, out of sorts with it. So the Celtics have to just really, really, really focus on doing that, and not just what they were doing was doing it multiple times per possession.
Right.
You would drive, it's not there. You kick it back out, you drive again. They just kept going at it. They didn't do that as much, I didn't think, in game 4.
Not enough
They got away
patience.
from it. They settled a lot faster. They didn't have patience. And on defense, they just weren't connected. And you could tell it just wasn't one of those games where, and then when it got away from them, it got worse and worse and worse and
It's the
worse.
first
So-
time we saw them look like they were playing with house money.
Right.
Usually they've had it, but it just didn't play like it. But they actually played as though they really had nothing to lose in that game, which, again, they're too good to let that happen back-to-back games.
Getting back to the paint will make a big difference here. They didn't do it at all last game. It takes hard work, and they just didn't play with the appropriate level of effort in that game, and that's what turned it into a blowout.
Yeah.
So they're going to bring that tonight. They're going to do what it takes to win. It's just about whether it's going to translate into made shots. The Mavs, what they're doing, does that lessen if the Celtics are taking care of business on offense? That's what Joe Mazzulla seems to think, is that if you just take care of business on offense as the Celtics, they're not going to get as many opportunities, which makes sense to me. That's what the Celtics have done all year.
There's some logic to that, but you also have to rebound the damn basketball.
Right.
I mean, at one point in
You're scrambling. If
Right.
you're missing and you're letting them on transition, I mean, that's why the Mavs had 65 rebounds in that game, is because the Celtics just missed so many shots.
Right. If you do a better job rebounding the ball, you can then play against a non-set defense.
Yeah.
I thought Jaylen Brown, I went back and I looked at his shot chart. He had one shot attempt that was an in-transition shot, which for Jaylen, he usually gets more than that in the first quarter. And so his ability to get out in transition is predicated on their ability to rebound the ball and get going, and they have to do a better job of that if they want to put this thing away early.
Sorry, I'm dealing with a crisis beyond this show here that I'm trying to put out a fire here.
No Chris Stapps.
Huh? No, it has nothing to do with
It has nothing to do with Chris Stapps? Okay.
It has to do with our team.
Damn it.
We'll figure it out. Don't worry about
Damn
it.
it.
Anyway, I was off.
It's okay.
I was off a million miles away trying to put out a fire here. We didn't get into the Kyrie factor. We started it early, and I think that's where we're going to kind of finish up the show.
Yeah.
We're not going to play the soundbite again, but the I don't even want to call it kooky. The amount of energy, effort, brain power that he dedicates towards setting the record straight or somehow absolving himself of everything that went down here and why he's not liked, it really, 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 really is in his head.
Rent-free living.
In a weird
Celtics
way.
fans have rent-free living in that guy's
and
head.
Durant is a very similar case where he hates when the narrative is other than what he thinks it should be.
Right.
And it drove him crazy
Right.
with the Golden State stuff and how that went down and winning cheap championships. It drove him insane
Right.
there. And this is driving Kyrie insane. And he went on to call, and part of it is the word salad of trying to sound, trying to put it a certain way and using the wrong words. And people ran with the word cult. I don't think he meant it's a cult, but he now all
said
of a
it.
sudden, he said
Right.
cult. He said cult.
That's the problem
He blamed the pressure of the Celtics on being a thing that's, I don't
Well, you
know.
know, but here's the thing about Kyrie, that one day, I think when he's done playing, I think he's going to embrace the fact that he is a glorified generational Scottie Pippen. You are your best version when someone is better on the team than you. That's when you can be your best. When you have been given the task of being the face, the leader, the guy that everyone is counting on to direct them, you can't get it done. You're not built for that. You've shown that over and over again. That's how it was in Brooklyn. That's how it was when you were in Cleveland. And that's how it was here in Boston. His ability or inability to give the kind of leadership and guidance to bring along a team. Because when you look at the guys that he played with, can you imagine how many young leaders would have loved to have been able to influence a Jason Tatum, a Jaylen Brown?
He did. He'll let you know that.
Yeah, the influence was greater, and I think Jaylen has talked about this, after he left than it was when he was a teammate. To me, it's just a consistent reflection of his inability to be the face of a franchise. He's a great next in command, not the one in command.
And I don't really care about going back to 2019 at this point because we've done that so many times.
Yeah.
What's going to happen tonight? And given how much she's focused on this, how much he continues to talk about it, and how much he's struggled here in recent history.
Rent-free, baby.
That's the biggest reason.
And can I get
go through
exactly what that is,
a
please?
million different things
Right.
about why the Celtics will win tonight. The biggest one to me is that Kyrie's not going to show up to the highest level of his ability, and Dallas can't win if he doesn't. Those two guys are too important.
Right, and the thing that we talk all the time about when you get to this stage of the postseason is the importance of having focus and locking in and doing all those little things that are so vital to winning. And it's particularly important when you're on the road. And Kyrie has consistently shown an inability to do that because you listen to his talk, you watch his play, and it's clear that the Celtics fan base is all in his head without even working at it. They're not even working as hard.
No one's saying anything. It's like you know those like Twitter memes where it's like nobody and then it's Kyrie.
Right.
I like all in defense of himself. Like literally nobody's saying anything.
Right.
They're just fuck after Kyrie and blah blah blah. Standard boilerplate stuff would be so easy to. I mean, geez, like grow up. Like in hockey, the most hated player on every team gets booed every single time.
That's what's supposed
in
to
every
be.
single city. That's just what you do.
Right.
Like it's pretty normal.
And why does he care at this point? I could have done things differently.
Because he
I'm not
doesn't
being
like
accepted.
that the story is
Right.
different than what he wants it to be. He needs the narrative to be, and he thinks, and he's mad that people are running with a different story. That's what I believe.
And he has no control over it.
And he has no control
None.
over it. And so he keeps trying to reset the record on it, hoping that everyone will be like, you know what Kyrie said makes sense. And every time he speaks, everyone's like, yeah, bullshit. You know?
But he won't talk about the biggest thing, which is the fact that he would
You
he was gonna
left
say,
and you
he
tanked.
Right.
Get over it. Be done with it.
if
And let's
any-
be done with it tonight. I mean,
Yeah.
Jimmy Toscano, for one, wants this series to be over for more than anything because he doesn't want to have to listen to Kyrie anymore. He just can't take
It's
it.
the ultimate closure to this whole narrative.
Quick breaking
Absolutely.
news, and we are going to wrap it here in just a minute. I'm going to actually swap out with Josue Pavone. Josue, slide back into my place here. I'm going to jump out. But one thing I want to tell everybody, Joe, moments ago, said expect to see him tonight. So it is different than
It's
different.
Like, Bobby, are you ready to jump on board now?
I would say so.
Oh,
on
there
that
we
news.
go. That's what I'm talking about.
Jump on board. It's different. So I'm going to slide out. I'm going to let Josue come in. We're going to close it up in about 10 minutes. This was good for me. I feel
better?
Yes.
There we go.
Let's see how it goes.
I
That's
started
gonna be a
out
big
not
moment.
great. I felt okay. I felt pretty good watching Kristaps, and as we were talking more about it, again that whole like Dallas ain't shit kind of came back into my, into my.
You just got to take him
sense.
seriously.
I'm probably going to
Take him
go.
seriously.
Right.
Stick to the plan. Let Josue Pavone take it the rest of the way. Okay.
Well, I'm going to probably go a little too far with this, Sherrod. But
Oh boy! Now we get him on board, and now he wants to drive the damn boat. Damn it, Bobby, what?
I think John's right. He'll probably be that first sub in. He'll probably be the first guy off the bench.
Right.
How that first stint goes, if it goes great, you're going to be racing to a championship tonight. If it doesn't go great to the degree that he can't go again later in the game, I think that's a huge open door for Dallas.
But you know what? Here's the thing about that stint, though, Bobby. It can go great, and Porzingis can do nada but simply be on the floor. His presence,
think his presence
I
will be
think
that
it's going to
impactful?
open everything up. I mean, I would not be surprised if Derek White gets going, for example, when Porzingis gets out there. Because my gut tells me that Dallas, when they see Porzingis step on the floor, they're going to overcompensate. Lively is all of a sudden going to be sprinting his ass out to where Porzingis is at, and Kristaps is going to either give him the pump fake, step in, raise up, or find the guy who has the ball with a mismatch and have them attack with no rim protection.
What's your reaction, Josue, to this?
Man, I want to see it. I really do. I just hope it's not one of those things where he's hobbling off the floor, but even if he's...
Man, this negative energy.
I mean, like,
damn.
You know what I mean, Sherrod?
I didn't even say that.
Damn.
Well, my whole thing is, that's what you've been worried about, though.
I'm not worried
I'm
about
worried
that.
about him not looking good, not hobbling off the
Damn,
floor.
Joe
hurting.
Sway? This is going to be a Willis Reed moment?
No.
Come on now.
Well, I said this before you hopped on, Sherrod. He can do one three-pointer in a block, and this place is going to lose it. So, I don't think it's one of those things where it's like, oh, he has to do this or he has to do that. Like, just his presence alone, especially when guys are trying to attack the rim the way they were able to so easily in Game 4, like, that's going to make a difference. Just him standing there and being Kristaps, right? And that's who he's been all season long.
That's the good part about his game, Sherrod, is his game doesn't involve much movement. He drops back on defense. Right. He picks and pops
he's
on
the last
offense.
last line of defense, right?
Yeah, so that bodes well to him being able to find a way to succeed.
And whoever he's matched up with, for the most part, is a non-deep shooting threat.
Probably Derek Jones.
Right, exactly. So for him, it's like, I'm not going to have to work nearly as hard defensively because the guy that I'm guarding probably isn't going to be a deep threat. I can play drop coverage. I can give us the rim protection that him and his Celtics teammates need. And offensively, if they're not going to guard me, I'm going to splash the long two or the three-pointer. And if they do play me, I can either put it on the floor, take my one dribble, drive, pull up, or one dribble drive, fake the pull up, and find Derek White or Tatum or Brown or whoever. Right. He poses so many potential problems if you're Dallas. I mean, your gut reaction if you're the Mavericks is to overreact because you know how big a difference maker he can be. I mean, they won games 1 and 2 with him playing. Game 1, he was just off the charts. It was maybe one of the best games he's played as a Celtic. Game 2, he was very good. It wasn't great, but he was very good. He just needs to be decent in this game. Doesn't have to be great, doesn't have to be out of the score. He just needs to be decent because a decent Porzingis is going to make the other guys around him better. And I thought that was the one thing they were missing in Game 4. They needed someone to be that catalyst, to really ignite the rest of the guys. I think he's going to be that guy for them.
Yeah, even a decent Kristaps in Game 4 makes a difference, you know?
Yeah, you don't get down big like that early on.
Exactly. And that's something that I think Dallas is going to try to do. They're going to have to try to get out to a big, not even a big lead, but just a significant lead, just to quiet this crowd down. I think that's something that's a big part of their game plan. And Kyrie's a big part of that. I know you guys spoke on it just recently before I hopped on, but like they're going to do everything in their power to get him going, to get him layups, get him just some sort of scoring to just ease the comfort into the fire, so to speak, into the trenches or whatever you want to call this place.
If you're the Celtics, that's what you want because you know that's not going to work. It hasn't worked in any of these games here. It hasn't worked in any of the games that he's played in this building since he left.
Right.
If I'm the Mavericks, I'm going to do the one thing that I know works, and that's Luka. Yeah. He's literally the one guy that you can bank on, regardless of what the Celtics do, who's going to make an impact. The one thing I would do differently if I were Boston, I have a little bit more patience when I'm on offense and looking for that Luka matchup because I thought that they rushed it a little bit. I thought that they were a little too eager. Yeah, they were too eager to try to take advantage of that matchup and just didn't really work it as much as they should because Luka did a better job defensively. You look at his numbers, the Celtics were 2 for 11 when Luka was defending them. Yeah. But if they would have spent maybe an additional 3 seconds per possession, he's probably given up another 2, 3, 4 buckets. And that's literally how much of a difference patience can mean in this series. It can mean the difference between Luka looking like he's damn Bruce Bowen 2.0 or Luka looking like Luka.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, he's got to make sure that he's got to make sure that the Celtics rather got to make sure that they're not just going into a possession 4, 6, 7 seconds in and jacking up a shot. That was a big part of why they just looked awful offensively. They never found that connectivity throughout Game 4 because they weren't doing that and they weren't passing the ball the same way they have been all series pretty much. So I'm expecting them to not fall into those same traps, that same pattern, especially with a three-point shot. I think they'll shoot the ball a lot better in this game as well. And having Kristaps just there, I feel like it's a motivating factor too as well for these guys. Like, hey, let's win this thing. Let's get it done here. 617 day, all that. Kristaps, you're a part of it. I think all that's relevant.
And don't forget one last thing, Bobby. I'll let you go. I'll pass it to you after this. Remember what happened in 2008 on this date? You won a championship.
That's right.
So let's. You talk about winning it for this person, that person. Your last championship literally came on this day.
Yep.
Make it to
in this building. Yeah, this place is gonna be crazy, and a big deal tonight's gonna be how they deal with the atmosphere. if you thought there was pressure to win up 3-0 and you were feeling it a little too much, anticipating it a little too much, you're going to do it very quickly when you see what this place looks like at tip-off tonight. So they're going to have to just play basketball, and that's not easier said than done. We'll see how they react to it. We'll see how Kristaps looks. We have some highlights of his warm-up up over on Celtics All Access, so you can watch those in full and see what he looked like. He is available tonight, and Joe Mazzulla said he expects to play. Again, shout out to our sponsors, Game Time. Go to Game Time and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase over there. Terms apply. And check out the Prize Picks app. Potentially your last NBA game tonight to play Prize Picks. So go over there, pick 2 or more players, their stat projections more or less, and use that code CLNS for 100% deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS. For John Zanis, who's nearby, Josue Pavone, A-Shrod Blakely, and maybe a special guest for later who's thinking about
Don't tell him, Bobby. Don't tell him.
This has been a pregame edition of the Garden Report. A big night here in Boston. Hope everybody's able to enjoy it, whether you're here or somewhere else. And we will see you, as always, after the game.